The morning of December 7th, 1941, begins in stillness. The Pacific lies calm, a mirror of soft gold under the rising sun. The air is light with salt and distance. On the water, the battleships of the United States Pacific Fleet rest in quiet rows, their steel hulls gleaming like statues. Sailors move slowly across the decks, unaware of what history has already decided. A bugle sounds in the distance. Somewhere, a flag is raised. The day feels ordinary. Then, silence begins to change. A low hum, distant and unfamiliar, drifts through the air. It grows, layer by layer. The sound of engines not yet seen. The signal of an approaching storm. But today, something is different. Moored among the vessels of another century, stands a ship that should not exist. It is vast, towering, flat-topped, and utterly alien to 1941 eyes. Its hull is a continent of gray steel, its deck lined not with biplanes or wildcats, but with machines of the future. Sleek, sharp-edged aircraft sit poised under the morning light, F-35s, each a silent promise of precision. Below deck, the hum of a nuclear reactor pulses steadily, a rhythm out of time. Screens glow in the command center, radar arrays sweep the horizon, and voices speak in quiet coordination across encrypted channels. The harbor remains unaware. The Japanese strike force, 6 carriers, over 400 aircraft, races across the open ocean. Just hours away. But this time, the target is no longer defenseless. A question begins to form beneath the still surface of Pearl Harbor's waters. What if, on that morning, the world of 1941 met the warship of 2025? Would the attack that changed history ever have happened at all? In 1941, the aircraft carrier was still a young idea, powerful yet uncertain. Naval empires still placed their faith in battleships, vast, armored giants built to exchange thunder across the horizon. At Pearl Harbor, the pride of the U.S. fleet was not its carriers, but its battleships. Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, floating symbols of deterrence, yet vulnerable in ways no one yet understood. Across the Pacific, the Japanese Empire had mastered another truth, that air power, not armor, would shape the future. Their carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, formed a moving city of destruction. A fleet designed to strike first and disappear into the open sea. Their mission: cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet before it could fight back. Their method: surprise, coordination, and faith in the skill of their pilots. But imagine if, among the American fleet that morning, stood a modern Nimitz-class or Gerald R. Ford-class carrier. Ford-class carrier. 100,000 tons of advanced steel and technology. Nuclear-powered, capable of sustaining 25 years of operation without refueling. Its radar network could track aircraft hundreds of miles away. Its fighters, F/A-18 Super Hornets or F-35C Lightning IIs, could engage targets long before they came within sight of the island. Where 1941 relied on visual spotting, binoculars, and radio confusion, a modern carrier would see through cloud, darkness, and distance. It would sense the enemy long before they crossed the horizon. The Japanese strike would never arrive unseen. It would be met, intercepted, and dismantled far from the islands of Hawaii. The idea is both haunting and revealing. A meeting of two worlds, separated not by geography, but by time itself. Technology versus courage. Information versus surprise. 1941. Against the future. To understand this encounter, one must compare not just weapons, but entire philosophies of war. The Japanese carriers of 1941 operated within the limits of human coordination. Spotters scanned the sky with binoculars. Pilots navigated by compass and instinct. Radar was primitive, its range short, and its precision uncertain. Communication depended on radio codes and discipline. Victory came through speed, surprise, and the courage of men flying open-cockpit aircraft against the wind. A modern carrier, by contrast, is an organism of information. Every radar pulse, satellite feed, and electronic whisper feeds into a single command center, a nerve hub where the entire ocean becomes visible. A Nimitz-class or Ford-class carrier knows not only what it can see, but what it cannot. Its escorts, destroyers, cruisers, submarines, extend its senses outward, forming an invisible perimeter of defense. In 1941, Japan's strike force approached Pearl Harbor in silence, relying on radio blackout and darkness. In a modern context, that silence would betray them. Infrared sensors, over-the-horizon radar, and satellite reconnaissance would detect their presence days before they neared Hawaii. The Japanese Zero, a symbol of grace and agility, carried machine guns and light bombs, deadly against unprepared targets. But against supersonic jets equipped with beyond visual range missiles and advanced radar, they would vanish before closing the distance. Even the Japanese carriers themselves, magnificent yet vulnerable, would be targets. Modern aircraft could strike from hundreds of miles away, each missile guided by data invisible to 1941 eyes. This confrontation is not merely unfair. It is asymmetrical in every dimension. Speed, communication, range, and awareness. Yet it also illuminates something profound. How much of warfare has shifted from bravery to calculation, from visibility to invisibility? Would such power still feel like victory? The morning sky above the Pacific is calm. Clouds hang low, the sea unbroken except for the faint tremor of wind across its surface. In another century, this would be the hour of surprise, the moment when the Japanese strike group crests the horizon, its aircraft engines slicing through the dawn toward Pearl Harbor. But not this time. Far beyond visual range, a carrier from the future waits, its decks alive with machinery that hums quietly beneath the ocean wind. F-18 Super Hornets crouch in formation, their wings folded like metallic birds. E-2D Hawkeye radar planes orbit high above, eyes wide across the curvature of the Earth. Beneath the waves, a ring of destroyers and submarines moves in silent coordination. Unseen sentinels guarding the carrier's heart. The Japanese force never knows it has been found. Their formation, once a masterpiece of stealth, is mapped perfectly on modern sensors. Each ship, each plane, each signal pulse is a data point in a network of total awareness. At command, the modern carrier launches its first strike. Missiles rise from the horizon, invisible, supersonic, distant. No human eye sees the enemy before destruction arrives. Within minutes, the leading Japanese carriers erupt into pillars of flame. Decks shatter, planes prepared for launch disintegrate in the shockwave. Pilots never leave the ground. Sailors stare skyward, searching for an attacker they cannot find. The sea fills with echoes, explosions rolling through the fog, like the slow breath of something ancient. Above, the sky remains serene. No dogfights. No duels of skill or bravery. Only silence between impacts. A battle where one side never even knows it has begun. When the last echoes fade, the Pacific drifts back into stillness. Smoke folds into the horizon, dissolving into soft gray lines across the morning light. The modern carrier continues forward, engines steady, its crew quiet behind glass and steel. The Japanese fleet, once the symbol of ambition and reach, has ceased to exist. Hundreds of ships and planes reduced in moments. Thousands of lives ended before their era could even understand what struck them. This is not a victory in the traditional sense. There is no contest of endurance, no uncertainty, no valor tested by equal means. It is the demonstration of a technological singularity, where war itself becomes one-sided, instantaneous, and absolute. The Battle of Pearl Harbor, a defining moment of the 20th century, reshaped by a single anachronism. A modern carrier, operating under the rules of the 21st century, eliminates the chaos that once defined it. There would be no American losses, no surprise attack, no declaration of war broadcast to a stunned world. The consequences reach beyond the battlefield. If such power had existed in 1941, history itself would fracture. The Pacific War would never begin as it did. Japan's empire, built on expansion and audacity, would collapse before it took form. The nuclear age might be delayed, diplomacy rewritten, the United States' entry into global leadership accelerated by decades. But something would also be lost. The human scale of struggle, the fragile balance that defined courage and sacrifice. In its place, precision replaces chaos, information replaces intuition, and war, once fought by men, becomes an algorithmic exercise in inevitability. History is built upon imbalance, moments when one side sees further, moves faster, or believes harder than the other. But in imagining a modern carrier at Pearl Harbor, that imbalance becomes absolute. The very concept of warfare collapses under the weight of knowledge and precision. It reminds us that progress is not always evolution. Sometimes it is separation, the point where understanding outpaces humanity itself. A missile guided by satellite does not hate, nor fear, nor hesitate. It simply obeys. In such obedience lies both safety and tragedy. The men who once stood on the decks of the Arizona, who fought with rifles and courage against the inevitable, belonged to a world where effort still mattered. Their struggle was defined by uncertainty, and in that uncertainty, humanity found meaning. To remove that uncertainty is to remove the soul of conflict itself. The question lingers. Would a future without struggle still teach us the lessons of courage? Would victory achieved without cost still carry the weight of remembrance? A modern carrier at Pearl Harbor would be unstoppable. But it would also be a mirror, reflecting how far we have drifted from the wars we once fought and the values we once held within them. Perhaps the deeper what-if is not about power, but restraint. Not what we could do with overwhelming force, but what we choose not to. For in the silence after the battle, as the sea returns to calm, the machines rest. And humanity, fragile, reflective, and small, must decide what it means to be powerful at all.